This vehicle right here, it marks the end of an era. This is a goodbye car. It's the Aston Martin Vanquish S, and it signals the end of an era for this British builder of special vehicles. Under the hood lies a V12 engine. It's one that doesn't make use of turbocharging technology. It's large at nearly 6 liters. It's massive, wide, and powerful as well. It's also thirsty. Here between the Vanquish S front fenders, it's bolted in place to serve as a swan song for the prior century of Aston Martin. And what a song it sings.
But of course it's not entirely perfect. No Aston Martin really is. It is amazing the sort of pass we give this level of vehicle. It costs colossal amounts of money and you can still find things wrong. It's no different here in the Vanquish S. In first gear, there's a weird clunkiness that I've never noticed in another ZF 8-speed gearbox. In fact, I've never noticed it in another Vanquish with this gearbox, so perhaps it's the car. The nav is much better than the older navs, but it's not as good as the new nav in the DB11. This is very much the end of the line for this Aston Martin V8 architecture. It ends here, but it is going out on a damn good note. These seats are the older style Aston Martin seats. The DB11 has comfortable new thrones. These ones I've always felt that you can get almost comfortable. You can get really close to comfortable, but not as comfortable as you would in something that costs a lot less. Or more if you are a Bentley or a Rolls-Royce customer. But there is something to be said about the sound of that naturally aspirated 12-cylinder engine. This is a dinosaur of an engine, but it is a dinosaur that is going out screaming, which is exactly the way you'd want it. Here in the Vanquish S, it is the most powerful Vanquish ever produced, and it revs to its 7,000 RPM redline. All 12 cylinders at full song is a wonderful thing that everyone should get to experience at least once in their life. I don't know how you're going to do it, be it stealing one, finding a friend online who has one, just call someone and get a ride. Pretend you're rich and go test drive one before they no longer exist. It's a reminder of Aston Martin's past with its quirky imperfections, while letting you know that there's better stuff on the horizon. In fact, the DB11 is already here, and it's great. It's harder to find faults with that car. They still exist, but they're far more ironed out. The infotainment whole center section is good now because it's backed up by Mercedes AMG. The engines are solid. The V8 is wonderful, and it comes from AMG. The V12 is not as good as this V12.
On tap, you'll find 580 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. It's paired with an 8-speed ZF gearbox, and it will push the Vanquish S from 0 to 60 miles per hour in around 3.5 seconds. If you have the space to keep the throttle matted to the carpet, you'll eventually see the needle sweep to 200 miles per hour. Beyond the engine though, the Vanquish is a street stunner. The lines sweep backward from the grille, up over the muscular fenders and out back to where the engine barks its orders from the exhaust outlets. It's easy to get swept up in the drama of this one, but it's also quite clear that the Vanquish S is Aston Martin's past. The V8 architecture upon which it rides is fading away, and we won't miss it as much as the 12-cylinder engine. That's because we've driven vehicles that already move Aston Martin onto its second century plan. The DB11 in both V12 and V8 trim are outstanding driving machines. Their electronic bits work well. Their seats are more comfortable. The overall driving experience is, quite simply, far better. However, the new V12 doesn't quite sound as good as the one here in the Vanquish. The older unit speaks with greater fury in its breath. So while we cheer on the arrival of Aston Martin's future latest and greatest, we can look back and longingly remember its history, as this V12 shout is loud enough that it will echo forever.